This is your daily encouragement. I'm Dr. Kevin Agarth. We're down at Marriage Partners Studio. Why don't you take a look around with us? Hi guys, I'm Dr. Kevin Agarth. This is Marriage Partners Ministries. I got an email and I was asking about an affair, asking about affairs. And the person is wondering, how is it that affairs happen? What is the anatomy? What takes place? What's the anatomy of an affair? How is it composed? And I thought this was a really interesting question, and so I just wanted to answer it publicly for everybody else to hear. You know, most people, a lot of people, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people think that affairs happen in a pretty small percentage of marriages. They might think, 5%, maybe 8% or something like that. The reality is that affairs happen in about 62 to 63% of marriages. That's a huge, huge number, and most people are not aware that it happens that often. There's been some statistics, some polls that have been done that have showed a smaller number than 62 to 63%. But what we've done is we've polled people that have had an affair and their spouse knows about it and they're in recovery. And we asked those people, if you were to get polled, if somebody called you and polled you, would you tell them the truth? Would you tell them, yes, you had an affair, or not? And a large percentage of people, now their spouses already knew they had an affair, they've already recovered from an affair, and they say, no, we wouldn't answer that. We would not answer that poll. And so we can begin to extrapolate from there that there's a huge percentage of people that are polled that have actually had affairs that say that would say that they did not have one, that they would essentially lie about it. So anyways, we don't need to really get into or argue about the exact percentage. I believe it's about 62 to 63% of every marriage experiences an affair, experiences an infidelity. Now, a lot of people think that an affair is something that happens, just a person goes to a bar, is drinking, some kind of wild party, like a one-night stand or something like that. And although those do happen once in a while, that's not the norm. The normal or typical affair is two people and they actually fall in love with each other. They fall in love with each other. And they believe that it was meant to be. In fact, there's been some very good statistics that have been compiled. When people file for divorce, what's the reason, and they indicate if there's an affair. And then research companies can get the statistics, find out what an affair, then they know who they can talk to, and they can gain research. They come to find out that most of the time, it's people that never thought it would happen to them. They never thought they would be the type of person that would have an affair. They're generally pretty good people, fairly moral people, generally speaking. They didn't go looking for it. It just happened. They just kind of fell into it. And they don't know exactly how that happened, but it did happen. And they were very much in love with the affair person, if you will, with the affair spouse. So these things are happening very often. They're quite frequent. And so I want to address the question, the anatomy of how it comes to be, how an affair develops over time. The reason is because we have in our home DVD study course some fence laws, if you will, or some guardrails that will help to keep you from falling into an affair in your marriage. And some people say, well, that seems a little strict, it seems a little restrictive, but that's because They don't think that they're susceptible to having an affair. They think that they're morally above that or superior in some way, that they would never do that, or that their spouse would never do that. And as I said, in the polling and the statistics, the vast majority of people that end up having an affair, they never thought they would have done it. And their spouse, for the most part, never thought that the wayward spouse would have had an affair, because their character and their morals and just everything about the person would suggest that they just wouldn't do that kind of a thing. Well, here's how it happens typically speaking. So I'm just going to kind of draw an imaginary situation, but it's very, very typical. So a husband and wife, they might make a friendship with another husband and wife from their local church. And they feel like that's a safe relationship. Here they have other church-going people. They're probably good people. They're probably moral people. And it's a husband and wife relationship, becoming friends with another husband and wife relationship. And so you think, well, this is safety. This is a safe thing to do. And then the next thing you know, the wife calls up the other husband and says, hey, friend, can you come over and help me move this really heavy thing? And the husband says, well, sure, yeah, that's no problem. So he comes over, helps her move this heavy thing, and she says, oh my, thank you so much. Oh, I really appreciate that. You're such a good Christian person, such a good Christian friend, and you sure are strong. Boy, I really appreciate you coming over. And after all, isn't it the Christian thing to do for her to show her appreciation for that good act? And so he walks away from that and he says, boy, I feel good about that. I feel really good about that compliment, and I did good, and that feels nice. And then they spend time with that other couple. And they maybe will go see movies with them, or go have dinners with them, or maybe go see concerts with them. And so when they're seeing this other couple, they're at the best, they're having the best times of their life. They're going to concerts with the other couple. They're doing fun things with this other couple. And so they just begin to see the other couple with great positivity, with great friendship, with great goodness. And if that other couple is roughly about the same in age and roughly about the same in ideology, which generally they are if you're going to the same church together, and next thing you know, they really feel good about being around. And the subconscious mind is saying, spend lots of time around them. They make you feel good. So you have this subconscious drive to spend time around them. Well, next thing you know, the wife from the other couple says, hey, I'm in this group at church. It's or let's say it's a board, a leadership team, leadership board. Why don't you join it? And the husband from the other side says, well, I don't know, I guess so. And then when there's the time for the meetings, he knows this other lady and he's very comfortable with her and has lots of fun around her. So he says, well, I'll sit next to her. So next thing you know, they're becoming closer and closer and closer. And there might be a little tiny little spark of physical attractiveness, There's an emotional attractiveness because after all, this is a Christian person. After all, they're a nice person. And this person gives me some compliments occasionally. And that makes me feel really good about me. So next thing you know, it just, the subconscious mind is saying, spend time around that person. It feels good. Go ahead, do more. And then there might be another event. And so the brain starts to look for what I call SLRs, supportive logical reasonings. We begin to create reason to do what our subconscious mind wants us to do. Our subconscious mind wants us to spend more time around that other person. And so we look for reasons, we look for ways to how to do that. And we're barely even conscious of that. Next thing you know, we're spending roughly about 14 hours a week with that person. Now, this might be easy to do because you work with the person, or it might be a little bit more challenging in the case of a little bit more distant friendships. But as soon as you start spending about 14, and there's very good statistics on this, about 14 hours a week together, the brain begins to release oxytocin and dopamine, and you're literally becoming addicted. You have this really, really good feeling inside your body. Inside your body. You feel so positive and optimistic when you're around that person. And you don't realize that it's coming from drugs within your brain. You just think you see Sally and you feel great. And so you associate Sally with great feelings. You've already begun on the slippery slope. You've already started sliding down the slippery slope. And it's very much like an addiction. In fact, the same details are there with an addiction. Anyways, I'm going to try to speed up the storyline a little bit here. So you begin spending a lot more time around Sally. Sally has compliments. You have compliments of Sally. Before you know it, because you're feeling all these things inside of you, you say in your conscious mind, you know what? I'm a good moral person. I will never have an affair, but you've considered it because you feel so good around that person. And you say to yourself, hey, I don't want to cut off this friendship. It feels good. And I'm not going to cross any lines because that's not my intention. Next thing you know, you're spending more and more time, and it feels so good that you end up crossing all those moral barriers that you never thought you would have crossed. You never thought you'd be capable of doing such a thing. And this is the anatomy of how it works. It starts off slowly. You don't intend it to happen. It's like a slippery slope. When you get to a certain point, once you're experiencing love, emotional love, it's almost too late. It's never too late, but it's almost too late. Let me explain something. When a couple is not an affair couple, but just a couple, when they're first falling in love, you've seen the movies. They'll cross great distances to be with each other. They'll move to another state to be able to be with each other. They'll cross the ocean. You've seen the movies. You've heard the stories. You've seen the television shows. That emotion of love will cause you to do just about anything to be with that person. Unfortunately, in the case of an affair, when you begin to fall in love, you'll do just about anything. People have thrown away their families to be with their affair partner. They've destroyed their finances. They've gotten divorces. If they have let's say they're a pastor or a politician, they'll throw away their careers to be with that person. The brain is releasing oxytocin and dopamine, and it's just like a drug addiction. Just like a drug addiction. Some people think that an affair is more of a moral failure and it's more of a moral issue than anything else. And although morals are involved, I would submit to you it's more of an addiction issue, a drug issue, than it is a moral issue, although morals are involved. So this is how it happens, my friends. This is the anatomy of how it happens. You never would have expected it. We've got a book on affairs, A Path to Recovery. If you find yourself in an affair, or a friend of yours in an affair, or if you feel like you're getting just a little too close to somebody of the opposite sex, this is a pathway of how to get out of that affair and how to have a strong marriage. This will really, really help you. It'll do a tremendous work in your life. Friends, I want you to understand the power of that emotion called love. And if you don't understand how it works, you are susceptible to falling into love. And if you're not married, that can be a wonderful thing. If you are married and you fall into love with somebody else, it's not a wonderful thing. I want you to understand the dynamics of exactly how it works. Okay? And even if you think you're not susceptible to have an affair, you think I would never do that, or you think my spouse would never do that, we're good moral people. I want you to understand there's a susceptibility there. If you understand from our home DVD study course how romantic love, how that emotion, that powerful emotion of love, how it's created. And by the way, it's created in our subconscious. Deep down, it's not in our conscious mind. We don't will it. We don't decide it in our conscious mind with a conscious effort. It happens in our subconscious. And when you understand how love is created and sustained, in action steps, by the way, then you can consciously continue those action steps in your marriage with your marriage partner, not somebody else, with your marriage partner. That's why we call it Marriage Partners Ministries. And you will sustain that powerful emotion of romantic love in your marriage. Friends, understanding, here's what I want to convey to you. You must, I hope you feel that hunger. I hope you feel that hunger. You must understand. You must know everything there is to know about the emotion of love, about romantic love. Because if you don't, you'll be susceptible to falling into an affair. You'll be susceptible to falling into love with perhaps somebody you don't want to. And you'll be susceptible, if you don't know how it works, you're susceptible to falling out of romantic love in your own marriage. You can fall out of it. If you don't know how it works, you can fall in, fall out, willy-nilly, because you don't know what's controlling it. You've got to know. In our home DVD study course, we'll teach you everything you need to know about romantic love. You'll know how it works. You'll know exactly how it works. And then, and by the way, we lay it out in a step-by-step format. It's very linear, it's very logical. I call it the emotional recipe, which creates the intense feeling of romantic love. Because nobody's talking about a divorce when they're in love. I want to explain, why do I call it a recipe? Because it's very linear. If you follow the recipe, you're going to end up with wonderful chocolate chip cookies every time. If you follow a recipe, a great recipe for chili, you'll have great chili when you make that chili. And you don't ever had to have cooked, before in your life. You follow a winning recipe and it will turn out great. That's why we call it a recipe, because it works for anyone. For anyone. And by the way, we've had lots and lots of couples that have had marriages that were not working out, they were struggling, all kinds of problems. Typically we see within 100 days, their marriage is completely transformed and they're back deeply in romantic love with their spouse. Usually 100 days, that's it. Sometimes less, actually a lot of times less, but for those who are having lots of problems, 100 days is usually it. So I hope this has answered your questions on how an affair happens. I hope, more importantly than that, I really hope that you have a hunger, a desire to know how emotional, romantic love works. And I hope you have a desire to learn about it and to put these things into action so you can have a passionate marriage that lasts a lifetime. That's my goal for you, my friends. That's my goal for you. Friends, please share this video with your friends. Please write in any comments or questions you have. You can email me at Marriage Partners Ministries. You can come to the website and email me. I'm happy to partner with you. Friends, remember, what you make happen for others, God will make happen for you. Thank you.